I don't understand how we can ultimately dismantle any of it if we don't stick to a intensely radical politic.
You're not broke if you're taxing rich people.
We break production for profit and we replace it by production for need.
This event is brought to you by Haymarket Books. Now more than ever, it is critical to support independent publishers, independent bookstores, and independent voices. There are two ways you can do this today. First, by buying books from Haymarket at haymarketbooks.org. And secondly, by joining the Haymarket Book Club. The following event will be recorded and shared afterwards on the Haymarket Books YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video now, and share it with as many people as possible. If you like this event, be sure to catch these upcoming events in Haymarket's live stream series. You can register for these upcoming events on the Haymarket Books Eventbrite page. If you miss an event, you can listen to the recording afterward by subscribing to our podcast, Haymarket Live, wherever you get your podcasts. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. We are moderating the chat, but we cannot guarantee that everyone will observe our community guidelines. People who violate these guidelines will have their comments deleted as quickly as we are able. This event will have live closed captions. Instructions for accessing the captions will be posted in the chat. We should have time for Q&A, so please post your questions in the YouTube chat window, and we'll get to those later in the program. Thanks for joining us today. Our event will begin shortly.
Good evening, party people. Thank you so much for being with us tonight at this launch party and reading for We the Gathered Heat. We on Skype, y'all. We're on Skype broadcasting to y'all. Technology is wonderful. The internet is a big, big, big place, and you could have chosen to be anywhere on it. And you're here with us, and that means a lot. So thank you for being here. Before we get started with the reading, we want to have a couple of thank yous. We want to first, of course, thank everyone at Haymarket, especially Maya Marshall. Of course, Maya, thank you so much for your work over these 4 or 5 years, but also to Jose Alvarez, Maria Isabel Carlos, Erica Foreman, Jim Plank, Jamaica Williams, and Sean Larson, who's running his magic behind the scenes with tech with us tonight. And I'll pass it now to Terisa.
Talo palava o lo ingoa o Terisa Siagatonu. O te suasuaina lo utupuanga i nuu o asu, male nuu o tula i le motu o tutuila I Amerika Samoa. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Terisa Siagatonu. I trace my ancestral lineage through the villages of Asu and the village of Tula on the island of Tutuila in what is temporarily known as American Samoa. But I tune in tonight from unceded Huichin Ohlone territory here in Oakland, California on Turtle Island. To continue our thank yous from where Bao left off, I want to say thank you, Fafatai Telelava, to my beloved co-editors, to Bao Phi, Franny Choi, and No'u Revia. Being a part of this 4-year journey with you all has been incredibly gratifying and has healed a bit of my wounds around being in AAPI spaces as a queer Samoan Pacifica poet, let alone ushering into the world an AAPI poetry anthology like this one. We also want to say thank you, Fafatai Telelava, to each and every contributing poet who offered up a poem that wove into the tapestry that is We, the Gathered Heat. We are so fortunate and so excited to hear from a few of our contributors tonight, this evening. Before we get into our program, I just wanted to take a moment to say that, like many of us, I'm sure, I'm tuning in and co-hosting our anthology launch tonight with an unspeakably heavy heart. It's been quite the year, quite the last few months, quite the last few weeks, held quite the last 24 hours. I'm here gathered amongst us with Marcellus Khalifa Williams, also a fellow poet, heavy in my spirit, with a state-sanctioned execution of him heavy in my rage. I'm tuning in 5 blocks from the house that the Black Panther Party used to organize in. I'm tuning in from a city over from the campus that the Asian American movement grew its roots in back in the 1960s, as inspired by the Black Power movement and the anti-war movement against the American war on Vietnam. And as a colonized person whose island is also currently occupied, butchered, and taken by the West, I am here with Palestine forever in my spirit and my rage, reckoning with how much more can the human body take? How much more bombing, how much more genocide, how much more anti-Black racism, how much more annihilation, how much more land theft, how much more death? What is the cost of all of this, y'all? And what is any of us paying for it with short of our own souls? I'm here asking these questions of us and of myself, while knowing that even amidst this terror, if I am to go anywhere for a little breathing room from it, I'm grateful to know that I can always go where the poets are, that I trust where we gather in the heat of us. And I invite everyone joining us tonight to trust it too, knowing that the poets who will touch our virtual stage is just a taste of the village it always takes for us to get even a little bit free. Before we pass it to our amazing contributing poets to take the virtual stage, Bao and I wanted to first take a moment to share why we personally felt drawn to being editors of this project, and also share a little bit about what came up for us as Asian American and Pacific Islander poets working on this anthology amidst our community's righteous reckonings, milestones, questions, challenges, and even rejection of the label AAPI. Part of what makes me so proud of this anthology is one of the reasons why I initially said yes to Franny's invitation to be a co-editor of it, which was just the mere possibility of being able to remind the world that Oceania is home to writers too, that Pacifica folks come from rich oral traditions that survived colonization, US militarism, imperialism, and settler colonialism long enough to write down, publish, and tell our stories and memories, even if the world doesn't read us. I will share, though, that the thought of creating this anthology under the AAPI label wasn't a simple one amongst our editorial team. Years of conversations took place between the 4 of us to reckon with what it means to bring a project like this into the world when our own people have very valid concerns and questions about even the utility of the AAPI label. But as a queer Samoan person who's been organizing in our AAPI community for half my life, and as the granddaughter of a man who was on the committee that coined the term Asian American Pacific Islander for the US Census Bureau in 1978, I've come to terms time and time again with multiple truths about our AAPI people that are rooted in 2 things. The first one being that I feel like our elders made decisions on behalf of what they saw were in our best interests back when Asian American and Pacific Islanders became grouped. And it'd be in our best interest to learn more about that history so we can decide where we go from there. And the second is a truth that Bao actually said in the introduction of our anthology within the letters that the four of us wrote to one another in lieu of writing a traditional foreword, where you said, Bao, quote, maybe our positionality allows us to see that many different things can be true all at once. Maybe it forces us to. And what is possible if we, rather than yearning for one monolithic identity to rally around, we instead embrace the messiness, the multiplicity, the impossibility of AAPI. Instead of wishing we were more decipherable, what if our power lies in being impossible? I think it's impossible to capture all of us in this anthology, meaning we need more books and more of our stories. I absolutely see a world where we transcend our AAPI-ness in our future, even as I'm so damn proud of what we created here in this book. I think all are true all at once. And I'll pass it over to Bao to share a little bit more about why he was drawn to the project and what came up for him in the creation of this process together.
Thank you, Terisa, for the galactic brain and the gigantic heart through the whole process, and also with the statements. I co-sign everything you said. So my positionality, Vietnamese American refugee directly from war and imperialism and colonialism and Cold War chess games with the country that I was born in, to Minnesota, the Midwest. First large wave of Asian Americans were Southeast Asian refugees in the mid-70s. I grew up in a poor working class family blocks away from where the American Indian movement started in the mid-70s, around the same time. The papers, the main paper, Minneapolis Star Tribune, published an article about how Southeast Asian people were kidnapping and eating pets. That sound familiar to you all at all? And I lived through the 80s, the Buy American anti-Asian violence, where American auto companies blamed Japanese auto industry for outsourcing labor and jobs to other countries. And we bore the brunt of that violence. And then as an adult, after 9/11 and the violence inflicted on brown Asians after that, scapegoated, through now being a father, raising a child where my child went to daycare, summer school, 3 blocks away from where George Floyd was murdered. That's some of the positionality that I come to you today. But the reason that I came to this particular project is also because I'm Gen X. I've been doing this since 1996 in high school. And I'm of the generation that came after many people of color kicked the doors down in traditional publishing to make space. But those of us who are from spoken word and Islamic community were still shut out from that. We were between that and the Instagram, YouTube generation of folks who just did it for themselves. And there is a tension I'm holding being in that generation where some of the greatest poets that have influenced me in my lifetime, in terms of their art, in terms of their culture, in the way, in terms of what they did for and how they were in community, do not exist in a way that it will endure time. And so for me, being a part of this project was doing my part to rectify that. Thank you for listening. We hope you dig the book. We're going to just roll through this now. Each poet is going to briefly talk about why they contributed to the anthology, and then read their poem. Terisa and I will read their bios, and we're just gonna roll with it. But first off, Terisa is actually going to start with a reading by Hunani K. Trask, who is no longer on Earth with us, but we're honored to have one of her poems in this anthology. So, Terisa, take it away.
Thank you, Bao. It's such a deep honor to read this offering from Auntie Honani. And I want to thank our co-editor, No'u Rabia, for doing the due diligence of asking Auntie Honani's estate for permission to publish this poem in this book. So it's a real honor for her to even have her words in conversation with all of ours. And so I'll start off with reading her bio first. Haunani K. Trask is one of the most important figures in Hawaiian history. A leader of the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, she was also an Aloha Aina activist, educator, and poet who mentored generations of Kanaka Maoli. Her scholarly work, From a Native Daughter, Colonialism and Sovereignty in Hawaii, and her poetry collections, Light in the Crevice Never Seen and Night is a Shark-Skin Drum, are taught throughout the world. If I may, I'm just going to read and start her poem off with an excerpt from her book, From a Native Daughter, that was written in 1993, in which it said, "This conflict over Native sovereignty is not unique to Hawaiians. It is repeated through the Pacific Islands, indeed, anywhere in the world where Native peoples suffer the yoke of oppression, like Tahitians, Kanaks, Maori, Australian Aborigines, Palestinians, the Kurdish peoples, Tibetans, the Maya, Quechua, and many other indigenous peoples. Native Hawaiians continue to struggle for self-determination and self-preservation as a people." This is her poem entitled Sons. "Your grandmother said about your grandfather, I gave him 3 sons. Yesterday, a man told me to give him trust. Is trust like a son? Or less, not being generative, phallic, or immortal? Did she tell me about her giving in pride or warning? But I have no sons to give, no line of immortality. I am slyly reproductive. Ideas, books, history, politics, reproducing the rope of resistance for unborn generations. But sons are not so earthbound. They soar beyond, somewhere with a woman's trust in their fists. And I stay behind, weaving fine baskets of resilience to carry our daughters in."
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Teresa. And yes, thank you, No'u, for seeking the permission from the estate for us to include that beautiful poem. I think we're gonna just keep rolling. Teresa, will you introduce George?
Of course, it'd be my honor, actually. Our first poet to touch our virtual stage is none other than George Abraham. George is a Palestinian American poet. Their debut poetry collection, Birthright, published by Button Poetry in 2020, won the Arab American Book Award and was a Lambda Literary Award finalist. They are currently Mizna's executive editor and are co-editing Heaven Looks Like Us, Contemporary Palestinian Poetry with Noor Hindi for Haymarket Books. Without further ado, please, y'all, show some love. Give all your energy to George Abraham.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Bao. Thank you to everyone at Haymarket, dearly, dearly beloveds. I'm just not gonna mince words. I really almost pulled out of this event. I'm really struggling today, and I want to preemptively ask for forgiveness if anything I do is just off tone and in the spirit of that amazingly capacious introduction and letters that these gorgeous, amazing editors have written, thinking about the impossibility of our collective. I'm going to say something that might be difficult for us today. Heavy with the increasing escalation of the Zionist entity's genocidal agenda in Gaza, in all of Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria, and in the broader Sawana region, it is only out of utmost respect to you, all of people watching, who I consider my people, that I even allow myself to show up. It is out of allegiance to and faith in this community that I appear, heavy with the words of the great mid-20th century Palestinian poet Rashid Hussein, who wrote, "I am from Asia, the land of blood and hope, of heroes making history defy decrees. The land of fire, forging furnace of freedom fighters, birthplace of rebels against the Goths. I am from Asia, rising from ashes, a son of flames." I remember the day when I stretched out my hands to the world. I am a man. Arise, touch me. They were laughing. Son of madness, so they named me. Slave, son of a slave. Silence. Today they stand in line to kiss my hand. The past year has been, among many things, a litmus test for our many communities gathering under the construct of Asian American Pacific Islander identity, political coalition, and potentiality thereof. I'm torn as a Palestinian, feeling kinship with so many of the writers in the anthology, feeling kinship with all of the editors who have inspired my actions and words to push the boundaries of what our collective can make possible and how we can better love each other during times of catastrophe. In the face of a wall of silence and apathy on Palestine at best from the mainstream literary world, it is you all, my comrades, who have stood with us most, who have protested with us, who have turned your words into weapons against imperial powers everywhere. And at the same time, I cannot pretend like this is easy for our collective. We are facing many challenges within our collective, including the most recent egregious actions of the Kundimon board and its founders, who spit in the face of our collective, who disrespect the time of Palestinian fellows like myself and Tariq Luthun, our only Ghazawi fellow, and who have fired and otherwise push out the most ethical, principled, bravest staff members I know in the literary community. Sitting in this space, both wanting to hold love for this anthology and its capacious editorial vision, and also wanting to hold the grief of many catastrophes within our broader collectives, I will not be reading my own poem tonight in the anthology. I will instead be reading a poem reacting to, or more accurately, hijacking another poem in this anthology. Because to love and form literary community requires us to have conversations with each other even when they are difficult. I do not use this term lightly. When I say hijacking, I mean a takeover from the inside out, a violent overriding with the intent of Palestinianizing those whose words and actions have become a weapon against my people. As a Palestinian, nearly every single one of my words across the course of my life have been misrepresented, overwritten, hijacked, and exploited for some other agenda. Among the only poems I've been able to write this past year are what I call the hijackings, word for word rewritings of poets, even from my own communities, even those I love dearly, who have failed Palestinians with their silence and inaction. There are no more normal poems in a time of genocide. I aim to hijack poems so that in the ashes of what the poems become, our community might find greater clarity, and the poets who fail us might see a little more of themselves that they weren't ready to understand. May the small catastrophe of this poem continue to push us forward collectively towards liberation for all. I encourage everyone watching to follow Kundimon Community on Instagram and Twitter for further updates. And again, saying this with extraordinary thanks for legends like David Mura and Kazim Ali for stepping in to mediate during this time of this, what I consider a very, very dire situation for our community. This poem is hijacking Sarah Gambito's Virginia, which can be found in the anthology on page 69. It is titled Israel. We were brown and immigrant. We drove caterpillars over corpses and sang songs to the hymnals of people we pretended were white. We loved these songs, and God was pinned to the underskirt of my tank like a blood orchid. I loved a boy who used to be named Milkowski a country ago. My father sent me to his house with 100 falafel that she had her brown maid fry herself, Arab, Filipino, I forget. We kissed until my tongue was tied. I didn't know that a tongue, like any muscle, can forget a whole people. I wore the whitest skin on Halloween. I smudged my eyes with a lit coal off a hookah pipe, dotted my neck with 2 red dots. What am I? A victim. I flapped my arms like a flag, desert winds beneath my wingspan. I didn't dare to think I could not belong. A beheaded baby was stuck to my aureola, wiping the sun's juice off its face. I lived within the pencil drawing of a country. I wanted to be a poem, animal-like, my country and its opposite rose against me. Incest, I could not think of nothing else but living, laughing, and loving in that precise order. If my family knew how to read, they'd beat me until I was flag blue. Huddled around the idea of a country, I said I wanted to be a poem. The poem played ode. Her arms muscles were countries, and her voice was a country, and I knew she loved her husband, her children, and her dog, but nothing more than her country. In this song, I saw shards of bone in the asphalt that once held canned supper and savor. I touched bankruptcy as genocide passed through me like a chain. The body of an Arab, a tiny dot on a horse, leaving, then coming back, then leaving ad infinitum. I tried to read Darwish once. Why did you leave the horse alone? His exquisite face, like a man who lives his death, looking down the barrel of a broken body, a broken language. I too have felt the non-belonging. With him, I watched the tide go in and out from the shores of Tel Aviv, unnaming the assaults and batteries of my country. I wish I could send him a draft of this poem. I wish I was capable of reading him.
Thank you, George, for that powerful reading.
Yes.
And I encourage all of us to pause, think, and let's take 3 breaths together.
Thank you. Thank you so much, George. There are no more normal poems in the time of genocide, and I don't know what to make of the future of our AAPI community, or even just the present day most of us, but I know that none of it matters without a free Palestine. I know that none of it matters without our land back. But thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you all for hanging in there with us and for holding space, difficult space, challenging space, painful space, challenging space, but vital and necessary space. The next poet who is going to gift us and spend some time with us today and share her gifts is someone near and dear to me for so many years, Sham-e-Ali Nayeem. She's a multidisciplinary artist, poet, musician, and recovering social justice lawyer with Hyderabadi Muslim roots. She is the author of the poetry collection City of Pearls and has released 2 musical albums, City of Pearls and Moti Ka Shehir, featuring self-composed musical interpretations from her book. Her work explores grief and loss, ancestral transmissions, international solidarities, and space to imagine. Sham-e-Ali is the recipient of the 2022 Leeway Transformation Award, the 2016 Loft Literary Center Spoken Word Immersion Fellowship, and the 1997 Echoing Green Fellowship. Please, everybody, open your hearts and welcome Sham-e-Ali Nayeem.
All praise be to Allah in every situation. Imam Marcellus Khalifa ibn Raymond Rayford Williams. I don't want to read my poem. I'd actually, if George would allow, I would like to read George's poem in the anthology. And I'm trying to find it because I'm an old lady. And if anyone happens to know the page, if you could just put it in the chat, I'd appreciate that. And I'm just waiting for George's consent, and I will read. George, may I read your poem? You would mean a lot to me. I know, but okay, George is saying he wants me to read my poem. So I'm only doing it because of that request, but I hope that tonight we'll have a chance to hear George's poem in this anthology. And I'm going to keep it really brief. I was born in Hyderabad, Deccan. That was an independent state before it was annexed by the nation state of India in 1949. That included a massacre of between 40,000 and 200,000 people. And it was suppressed in a report that wasn't released until 2013. And that's all I can handle communicating. Other than also thank you. The reason I agreed to be in this anthology is because I truly believe from my soul that our struggles are connected. And also deep gratitude to George for that introduction. I think it's the correct introduction for this. Show us your papers for George. What paper could prove every buried ancestor, every story on each brick, every seed that became the tree, every street's ghost? In this country, no evidence of humanity is left, no certificate, no soul. In this country, papers become dust, become soot, become flooded, and disintegrate into nothing. In this country, 201 million people were born before nation state, before borders, generations that never left, generations of Muslims that never left. In this country, stars witness Muslim, Dalit, and Adivasi births in nameless clinics and rooms, no papers to prove the marrow and soul of a land. In this country, paperless people of the earth say, "This place is mine. Can you not see? We birthed it." What paper could prove umbilical cord to earth, memorized forest, an index of the river's moods, the land's fingerprint on every ribcage? Thank you. And one more time, I just want to say it one more time. All praise be to Allah in every situation. Imam Marcellus Khalifa ibn Rayford Williams.
Fatai Sham. Thank you for your words, Sean. Thank you for your graciousness in trying to yield your time to George. Thank you both. Thank you, everyone. My gosh, I'm a little all over the place. I want to fold in that No'u and Franny are tuning in right now too and sending all of their love, all of their aloha, all of their breath. So just thank y'all for this enormous space and possible space that we're all holding together. So much gratitude to each and every one of y'all. It's my honor to introduce our next poet, Nicola Andrews. Nicola Andrews is a Maori Pākehā poet and a member of the Ngati Pawa Iwi, currently living on Ramaytush Ohlone territory. They are the winner of the 2023 AAALS Indigenous Writers Prize for Poetry. Colonization via transcription algorithm also appears in their debut chapbook, Maori Made Difficult, published with Tram Editions. Without further ado, please help me show your love and give all your warmth to Nicola Andrews.
Kia ora e te whānau. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this event. As some of you know, just a few hours ago, I flew from California to my hometown here in Aotearoa. So I've really been reflecting on what it means to participate in this reading as one of the first things that I do here for this trip, and keeping solidarity and connection going. I've been walking around town and seeing lots of solidarity for Palestine. So here in Oceania, there are murals, folks are wearing keffiyeh badges, folks are really watching and advocating, which makes me really proud as someone from West Auckland. I'm also really happy to be part of this anthology. I work as a librarian, and so I'm always paying attention to what's on our shelves, what do our records and archives say. Every AAPI Heritage Month, I want to tear out my hair, but now I will have this to point to as a real means of coalition building and possibility. In the spirit of mixing things up for this reading, I'm going to slightly switch my poem. So for today, I'm reading, we can call it Decolonization Against the Transcription Algorithm. I love and miss my foreigner. I try my best, for my happy anyway. I keep my pop-up blockers close, trying to keep everything takeaway. I keep my town close to my skin. I look starward and remember my customer. I reflect on our album opener and consider our urine sovereignty. In fact, to be born modern is a gift, just like any digital type of data. I hope my farmer can be proud. I hope my pocket papa remembers me. I love and miss my whānau. I try my best for my hapu and iwi. I keep my whakapapa close, trying to keep everything tika. I keep my taonga close to my skin. I look starward and remember my kaumatua. I reflect on our mokopuna and consider our inherent sovereignty. In fact, to be born Māori is a gift, just like any indigenous kaupapa. I hope my whānau can be proud. I hope my whakapapa remembers me. Kia ora.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for that beautiful reading. Librarians rock. I'm pretty sure librarians saved my life. At Franklin Avenue, I would run into the library and hide from bullies and read books. Thank you. And thank you for being in this anthology. Thank you for sharing your gifts with us tonight. Now I have the great honor of introducing one of my fellow editors, Terisa Siagatonu. She is an award-winning queer Samoan poet, teaching artist, and organizer leader, born and rooted in unceded Ohlone territory /the Bay Area. Please welcome and give space to Terisa.
Bafitai, Bao, our village, everyone here. I love that everyone's like, in lieu of reading my poem, I'm about to do something else. Like how, like that's like the most AAPI shit we could do. It's just transcend labels, transcend borders, transcend formality. I didn't have time to pull up the poem that I wish I was going to read in lieu of the one I will read, which is my own. But thank you to my ancestors for helping me write every poem, including this one. And thank you especially to Stevie Wonder for the inspiration for the title. This poem is entitled Samoan Praise Poem in the Key of Diaspora. Praise the ocean for teaching me that home is not location as much as it is belonging where I am wanted. Praise the ocean for always wanting me, for washing my body in and naming it child. Praise the way the water bites at my ankles but never breaks the skin. Praise the skin on my ankle that had to break for the gun, for the tatau drawn by the gun's mouth and hands of a tufunga during my first tatau appointment on island when I was 17 years old. Praise his cigarette break so I could complete my sobbing in peace. Praise the umu, the underground oven of hot rocks and fire cooking the sweet coconut milk in the center of salted leaves for palusami, for the thick galo and soft fattiness of octopus tentacles. Praise the crinkled crack of metal on the edge of every can of tuna, greasy from oiled chunks of fish, peppered over a bowl of hot rice. Praise the ground as dining room table, as only place to eat. At eating at the feet of our elders as the talking chief blessed us in prayer. Praise the mother mosquito and her obsession with the back of my legs. Praise the stench of repellent that stuck to my skin like booby trap, like tourist trick, like second generation, like not quite from here. Praise the heavenly scorch of heat behind my ears. Praise the lowered heads and crossed legs atop each woven fala mat. Praise the village of women who wove them. The mulberry bark that was beaten enough to braid. Praise the broken flip-flops running alongside flattened frogs on the road headed towards the church house. Praise the choir of children who sing with one tongue. Praise the way we lay our dead to rest in front of each house. How there is no need for cemeteries if our kin never really die. Praise the way they return home to us. Praise home. Praise us. And now I have the honor of introducing my co-editor, the beloved Bao Phi. Bao is a Vietnamese American father and former poetry slam champ. He has 2 collections of poems, both published by Coffee House Press, Song I Sing, which is like here on my shelf, and Thousand Star Hotel. Please, everyone, give it up and show some love from my beloved co-editor, Bao Phi.
Thank you, Terisa, for your grace and generosity and for that beautiful, beautiful poem. Just stunning. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anti-Asian violence is the site of multiple sites of violence. So first is the act itself. Second is the denial that the acts are racist. And 3 is the failure to recognize the acts themselves in a historical context. In layman's terms, people thinking that this is new, when anti-Asian violence, Orientalism, colonialism, and imperialism is against Asian bodies is anything but new. At the same time, I wanted to resist the urge for retaliation and the hunger for violence that I felt. And this poem is an effort to envision a world free of the hate and violence instead of revenge. So this is called alternate reality. instead of a grandmother kicked in her face. 1,000 orchids blooming from each swinging foot. The stems and petals forming a fragrant face mask wrapped around every face, hers and yours. Instead of a father and his child stabbed in the face in a parking lot, the knives turned to pens. Sentences flowing like blood as the story of their lives filled the body of flag after flag, tracing the wind from every direction. Instead of acid poured onto a woman, we asked one another what our parents drank when they lost what meant the most to them. The lines on their faces, a worn map to the unbearable, so they can find it even when they die. Instead of a nurse being dragged from a train, we all grow wings. There is no net big enough, no handle long enough. Instead of a rock thrown through a store window, there are no stores. We have everything we need and nothing more. Instead of fearing for my mother and father, they are hunched over sewing machines, the stitches even as the needles dip up and down, the thread tight on the margins, or it all falls apart. They sew masks. They save your life. So there is no need for me to keep screaming how they saved mine. Instead of "you chinks brought the virus here," there is a chorus in a language no one understood but translated as beauty. So loud you were shaken, and you learned the limitations of dancing how you've always been taught to dance. Instead of "you people need to stop eating bats and rats," American history books fell off of shelves and burst into flames, and we cooked our dinners for one another, burnt in some places and raw in the other. In the dark, our families' backs are hunched with all they can carry, dodging the spotlight eyes of soldiers, the bark of their guns off leash. They always escape the men with guns. We never forget. Instead of deportation, our bodies become boats. The ocean is impossible to border. The flags sink to a place where there is no light to see the sigils. We are all water, so we be like water. Here, mothers don't need dead sons or daughters before they are heard. The doctors and nurses don't need to stand in front of pickup trucks as if they were tanks. We don't need to celebrate a day that a child isn't shot at school, because that is every day. The drones drop only bread. The boots float meaninglessly over the necks of our fathers. The bigots are too busy with therapy to pay us any mind. The police bullets always miss. The hottest flame is in your kitchen. Lovers are never the chameleon color of bruises. You could lean down close to the face of the dying person whom you love, say goodbye to their very last breath. It's not science, but rather science fiction, that the landmines are not landmines, but seeds. And like flowers bursting from the soil after winter, you are an explosion in bloom. And our elders look at their grandchildren the way a person looks at the rainbow after a tornado has taken their home, bit by bit, away into the very same sky. Thank you for the space.
Ooh.
Thank you for listening. We have one more poet that's going to share with us, and we are going to engage you all with.
Real quick, Val.
Yeah.
David is here with us, and he's joined us. Maybe if what if I give you a breath? I can introduce Saba, and then you can introduce David. But before I do, I just want to give you your flowers, Val. Like this project, George is right. George called you a legend in our chat, and he's right. Because that's how I looked at you, Val, amidst working on this anthology together. It is so beautiful and vital how intergenerational this collection of work is, that I can name so many poets that came before me that paved the way for so many of us here tonight. And you are definitely one of them, Bao. So every flower to you at your feet tonight. Thank you for this piece and for your work.
Thank you for your kindness.
Yes. Whew. I have the pleasure and honor to introduce our second to last poet, my neighbor here in Oakland, California, the amazing Saba Keramati. Saba is the author of Self-Mythology, selected by Patricia Smith for the Miller Williams Poetry Series, published with University of Arkansas Press in 2024. She is a Discovery Poetry Prize winner. For more, please visit her website at www.sabakeramati.com. Please show your love and give it up for Saba.
Thank you all. I'm a bit of a mess after all of those really wonderful and important readers that came before me. I want to thank Haymarket and the editors of this anthology. I submitted because I was familiar with all these editors' works and I wanted to be read by them. And when we got the proofs, there was no table of contents, so I was scrolling through, and I was like, "Oh crap, they forgot my poem." But then I got to the end, and I learned that they had put my poem as the closer for this anthology, and it felt really special, and I'm so honored for that. I'm going to read the poem that's in this anthology, even though it is a poem of joy, and I do feel full of grief this week, month, year, but this is a poem that I wrote after I went to another Asian American poet's book launch, Monica Sok. Her book is called A Nail the Evening Hangs On, and she deserves her flowers, so everyone go read that book. It is a book that examines America's role in the Cambodian genocide. Her book came out in 2020. The book launch was right before the shutdowns for COVID. I am struck by the timeliness of all of these things coming together and remembering how interconnected all of this is. So, thank you. This poem is called I Go to a Poetry Reading in Oakland and I Am Reborn. The brown poet laughs into the mic, says, "This one is for all my party people." She is dressed in white and I am ready to marry. The DJ, because yes, there is a DJ at a poetry reading in Oakland, plays Solange and Cardi B. We bump to it. The Hellas in me hella present for the first time in a long time. I clap, I snap, I say with abandon instead of pretending poetry is fragile and will only accept my demure, nodding head. We are not in a museum. We are alive and full of glory. The MC is beautiful and a Pisces. I know because she made us share joy with our neighbors. I have a crush on her. I have a crush on the whole evening, the bookstore with authors with names like mine, the soft fog of rapture slowly filling the room like the earth of our ancestors risen to listen. The hospital where I was born is around the corner. As if my beginning had faded this discovery, the familiar burn of incense, smoke. I look around and see so much of what I have been missing. My party people, exalted and magnificent. Where have I been instead of here? There is no apology for the ways I have learned to leave places behind. Only a promise not to do it again. The poet reads, we stomp our feet. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that poem. And I think you all know why, after you all have heard it out in the world, you probably can guess why we as editors were like, that's the poem that needs to end it. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Terisa, for your grace and your kind words. It means the world to me. You hold so much complexity and grace and necessity and vitalness and love. It's been an honor to be a part of this project. And you're talented as hell too. So just so much love and respect to you. We've got one poet left, and then we're gonna go to Q&A. So those of you who are out there, I think we're on Skype, but y'all on YouTube. So I think you can type questions in, they'll get fed to us. We'll take some questions for a few minutes. It's my pleasure to introduce David Mura, whose most recent books are The Stories Whiteness Tells Itself, Racial Myths and Our American Narratives, and A Stranger's Journey, Race, Identity, and Narrative Craft in Writing. His poetry books are The Last Incantations, Angels for the Burning, The Colors of Desire, and After We Lost Our Way. David Mura's most recent books are The Stories Whiteness Tells Itself, Racial Myths and Our American Narratives. Oh, I already said that part. All right, I'm going to skip. What I want you all to know about David is that he has done the work for decades. He was already doing the work when I was a teenager going to a Miss Saigon protest that he was a part of, where he showed me how Asian Americans, artists specifically, could be politically, culturally, socially involved. And the way he did it was with a selflessness and a humility that awed me. You have to understand that David Mura is one of the most decorated and talented writers in America. And this man would come to poetry readings and community organized protests and art showings of everyone. If people of color, artists of color, indigenous folks were doing art, he would be there to support unselfishly. And I looked, of course, his staggering talent as a writer, but also the way that he is in the world has inspired me for decades. So please join me in welcoming David Mura.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for such a wonderful introduction. I want to thank Franny, Bao, Nu, and Terisa for doing this wonderful, powerful anthology. It's clearly a labor of love for the whole community, and we all appreciate being a part of it. My poem is Why Bruce Lee is Sad, and I'm just gonna couple things. David Carradine, who took the role in Kung Fu, was into ritual self-asphyxiation, and that's how he passed. So that there's a reference to there. So this poem comes out of a New York Times article And I'm going to read the passage from the article. Can a fish be depressed? This question has been flowing around my head ever since I spent a night in a hotel across from an excruciating, sad-looking Siamese fighting fish. His name was Bruce Lee, according to a sign beneath his little bowl. Bruce Lee, totally still, his lower fin grazing the clear faux rocks on the bottom of his home. When he finally did move just slightly, I got the sense that he would prefer to be dead. So this is a poem I wrote after reading this passage. It's called Why Bruce Lee is Sad. Because no one listens to fish. Because I have swam in the deepest oceans and the coldest depths. Because I swam the deepest oceans and coldest depths. Because I pitched a show with a martial arts master wandering the West. Because I could have torn apart David Carradine with one hand blindfolded. Because David Carradine stole my kung fu. Because I wore a mask on Green Hornet when I slipped off my mask. Because Cato chauffeured Britt Reed and did his master's bidding. Because I could have kicked Van Williams' ass blindfolded with both hands tied. Because the melancholy of fish is of far more interest than the suicide rate of Asian American women or depression in our men. Because I didn't hear the cheers in Harlem when I thrashed Chuck Norris. Because no one saw what I held back to make the fight seem even. Because Chuck Norris now stumps for Trump. Because my white wife's family disowned her. Because the martial arts world forbade my teaching Lo Fan or blacks. Because they bulleted my son Brandon on the set of The Crow. Because when I swam back to Hong Kong, no one noticed. Because when I said, be water, my friend, this aquarium wasn't my dream. Because death stared from 1,000 mirrors and no fist could smash all that glass ceiling. Because if you enter a dragon and come out a fish, you're surely a gook in America where David Carradine, cursed and self-asphyxiated in a sexual ritual, isn't as sick as Chuck Norris, who once called me friend, now brain for a man who would ban me back to China to be stuffed in a fishbowl, looking as sad as this world has become. Thank you.
No one saw what I held back to make it seem even.
We have to be twice as good. And sometimes that's not even enough.
Yeah. David, thank you. You already know. I know you know. But
I love you. The only thing I don't like about you is I know you when you were a junior in high school, and you just make me feel incredibly, junior in college, yeah. You make me feel incredibly old. And I'm going to plead senioritis for mixing up the time for this. I don't know. But,
yeah,
you're going to have to put up with that as I get older. Yeah.
Well, thank you, David. Really, thank you all to the wonderful poets who shared their gifts and their thoughts and their heart with us. Those of you who are out there in the vast internet, applaud, give them snaps. They may not be able to hear you, but cosmically we'll feel that energy. Put that good energy in the world so whoever is close to you benefits from it. If you want to revisit the work, this is the book. We'll at the end of the Q&A, we'll definitely drop a link for you to grab this. We'll also remind you of our two other wonderful editors, Franny Choi and No'u Ravella. They will be reading on November 12th with 6 other contributors. We'll get to that. But until then, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, before we kick it to the Q&A, I also wanted to make clear, because I know our publicity said that Carol Ann Carl was to join us tonight, and I saw like on Twitter, folks were trying to tune in to see her poem. She sadly had to had other family obligations last minute and couldn't join us for this event, but are hoping that she can join us for either our virtual events or just another one that's soon to come. And so please look out for that when Caroline is able to join us. So go ahead, Bob.
Oh no, thank you for that, for reminding us and giving us the information, Teresa.
Yeah.
Right now we're gonna try to take questions, and so those of you out there in the vast internet world, if you have questions or comments, please do type them in, and we'll try to get to them as we can. While we're waiting, perhaps I'll ask each poet to. This is gonna be very hard, but like maybe name one poem in the book that you really come back to that's not your own. I mean, you all are AAPI poets, so you would never dare say your own anyway. But I'm just saying, like name a poem in there that you are really drawn to and appreciate. Just really quickly while we wait and see if there's any questions from the audience.
That Infinity Ghazal by Tarfia Fayzullah is like one of the crazy, like that has lived on my syllabi like ever since it came out a few years ago. Yeah, such a good poem.
This is really hard because you all chose so many good poems. Like you you should have given us an easier question. But I think for me, I find myself really drawn to How to Live in Southern California by Shelley Wong. I just love Shelley, and that poem just, I'm not from Southern California, but that poem brings me home in a way that is very special on the West Coast. And oh no, I stole Nicola's answer. Uh-oh, good thing I went first. But place is really special in this anthology. And I think that one is close to the beginning. So it kind of sets us up for more place that comes. So I've been reading that one a lot.
I want to just hop in. I mean, all of the poems is a shorthanded answer, but it was a joy to really help select a lot of these Pacifica poets that I can bet my life a lot of folks have never heard of or read from. And one of them is a poet that I was so geeked she even submitted anything because she is a legend to me and to so many Pacifica writers, and her name is Selena Tusitala Marsh. Her poem called Breaking Up with Captain Cook on our 250th anniversary. She's a Samoan Tuvalan English, Scottish, French poet. She was a former poet laureate in Aotearoa and just an overall badass. And it was poems like hers, like Auntie Honani's, like the late Terisa Siagatonu, in which I was just like pinching myself. I'm like, we have permission to have these poems in this anthology. And I can't wait for folks to really experience the breadth and just a taste of some of the other Pacifica poets in our collection, because it really is this is quite special, this thing that we created together. And I can't believe it's real a lot of times. And so.
I'm going to say Arabic by the late Aga Shahid Ali, who just, I might read one of his poems almost every day. So it's just like, how am I in an anthology with Aga Shahid Ali? And I just want to deeply thank all the editors for all your efforts and love in bringing this anthology into the world, and how deeply honored I am to get to be a part of it. And so I just hope you know how many of us are so grateful for the years of effort and care and love that you poured into this, and it shows just how do you pick one poem to just keep going back to. I would also add Bioluminescence by Paul Tran.
I have a question for y'all if people are still thinking as editors. I mean, because me and Noor, and I think a lot of ways this anthology is definitely paving the way for Noor and I's Haymarket anthology of Palestinian poetry, and knowing just how grueling and how intense and how like hundreds of hours of labor go into this, that is very, very invisible and very, very like not sexy and very just grueling and painful and logistical, and yeah, anyways, this process is so difficult. What is the biggest surprise y'all had in your process as editors, across these, like, again, probably among y'all thousands of hours who went into this?
Before we answer that, I didn't know if Nikki had an answer to a poem in the book. I saw you unmute, but maybe I read that wrong.
I did think of one, thank you. I wanted to give a shout out for Flood by Grace Washington Taylor, and also just express my gratitude that as editors, you are specifically making space for spoken word and slam.
Yeah, we have to. A majority of us came up in slam.
Right.
Me, Franny, yeah. Do you have an answer to George's question, Val? I'm still ruminating.
I'm still thinking.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess, some surprises were people who decided not to contribute. And I don't know the reasons why. But I don't know if it's surprise. I guess it's more about like there were so many people I wish were in here. You know what I mean? And their reasons for not contributing are their own. It's not a judgment. But I think that's how I would answer that,
Yeah, I think so. Something that we were really diligent about was making sure that the contributors transcended Turtle Island, transcended the US, because so many of our poets don't live here, are not from here, and don't trace their ancestral lineages here, and in fact live on their ancestral lands. And so I'm specifically, when we're talking about Oceania, a lot of our poets are in the Hawaiian Kingdom. A lot of them are in Aotearoa, on Guahan. And initially, and it still is exciting to know that that is also what comprises our anthology. I thought it would be, I think I was taken by the labor around coordinating all of that. Even the mere act of this virtual event is at a peculiar time still for the Pacific, where, for instance, some of the Pacifica poets who we also invited to join us tonight, it's like the middle of the day for them. And so it's like, how do we contend with that too, in terms of time and space and whatnot? And so, yeah, maybe not as much a surprise, but the laborious effort around like doing our due diligence and like doing this book justice, of like, we weren't going to cut corners of like, well, let's just go this route because they're easier to coordinate with. It's like, no, we're going to work as best as we can with our people, so that this can be a true reflection of who we are.
Yeah. And thank you for the reminder, because I think I want to change my answer. The biggest surprise, I agree with everything you said, Terisa, but my answer is the biggest surprise was COVID. Like we agreed to do this in 2019, and then, and like right before, and the entire world, like the entire world always changes, but like, let's just recognize the impact on it, and even how it affects how we read books, how we're in space together, how we how we do readings, book readings, all of that changed. Definitely did not see that coming. Yeah.
And to contextualize even more, it changed amidst a global pandemic that was being blamed on Asian folks, right? And like,
That's right.
What the fuck? Like, and so our editorial team, I love so much about how tender we were and are with one another. And the rapport we built was based in a love that just grew over time because I love you, Bao, and I love Franny, and I love No'u, and y'all are my people. And amidst like just the most heinous vitriol and violence done unto people who look like y'all, it was just like, contending with, and now we have to create this body of work was insane, it's just a wild, and it was deep to maneuver through that. And it took out however long it had to take. And we're here because of what we endured through that.
And the love is definitely reflected back to you. I hope you feel that. And like also, the discussions that we've already touched on, this fraught term called Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and the complexities and the emotional labor that you held and No'u held in particular through the process. That's no small thing, and so you have my gratitude for that. This book couldn't have happened without you two. So.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or ruminations or things we should discuss?
Yeah.
I will say.
Go ahead.
Okay, you have to go after. But I think something that was also special about this, because I do mean it when I say this wasn't an easy yes. This was me with a lot of questions and a lot of like preliminary thoughts and feelings and reckonings before it was a yes. And even in the midst of it, it was still just a lot of like pauses to like regroup and understand like, okay, wait, what is our objective? What are we doing? Where are we at year after year? As my own understanding of our AAPI-ness either sharpened or deepened or was challenged more. And I love that I'm at a place amongst our editorial team in which I fully trust Bao and Franny to hold it down for our Pacifica poets in this collection. If me and No'u are not in the room, if me and No'u are not at the event, I fully trust that. And that came from being in genuine relationship and sharing the va or the space between us in an authentic, genuine way over years. And that's just a snapshot of what it does take to build genuine coalition and solidarity and love between our people and within our people, intra-community wise. And so that I'm grateful for in terms of this project. Yeah.
That's well said. And I think that actually might be a good place for us to call it a night, a good note to call it a night. So I would just want to again express my profound gratitude to all of the poets who shared their gifts and their poetry with us. Certainly the wonderful, powerful poets of this evening, but also the over 100 poets that are in this anthology. We're just so profoundly grateful. Please buy the book. We're gonna drop the link in the chat or whatever. There is another reading again it's a Tuesday, right? Tuesday, November 12th at 6 p.m. Central Time with our two other editorial team members, No'u Rivera and Franny Choi, and 6 other different contributors. We'll also drop a link to that. Please mark your calendars and support them.
Yes, and please hit us up if you are interested in hosting a reading regionally, like wherever you are. If there are poets you are able to gather from the anthology, let us or hey Market know. As we said, some of the in-person readings are in the works, so stay tuned for that as well. But we also want to just give love to our co-editors, No'u and Franny, for holding it down virtually with their students, and for everyone for tuning in wherever you are, be it here in Turtle Island, Oceania, and beyond. Fafitai Telalava, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us for the inaugural virtual launch for We the Gather Keep.
And thank you, everyone at Haymarket.
Yes.
And also Sean, who's been holding down the tech this entire evening. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Terisa. Thank you, No'u. Thank you, Franny. Thank you, poets. And last but certainly not least, all of you out there in the internet ether who came to share space and heart with us tonight. Thank you for being here. Have a great night.